Hi makeup friends, I hope you all are doing well. I am here to do a fantastic foundation review for you guys. The reason why I say fantastic is because this foundation has recently been launched in our market in Trinidad and Tobago. I'm not sure about any of the other islands or countries or whatever. I do know that this has come out, I want to say, since the beginning of the year. In the US, they usually tend to get all of their new products at the beginning of the year in January. The drugstores do, and they say drugstores like Target and Walmart and stuff, they usually tend to get their items the beginning of the new year. We, however, in Trinidad take a long time to get these things, so they have gotten it since January. It's now the first weekend in March, and it has launched, last week, this weekend. Honestly, they were about the first week in March, So, and the foundation I'm talking about, as you can already tell from the title, this is the Maybelline Superstay 24-Hour Full Coverage Foundation. So, as I said, it has been launched since, I want to say, January in the States and stuff, and then we have just gotten it first weekend in March. Now, this foundation retails for $9.99 US, I believe. I checked on Target's website. I don't know if it is cheaper in Walmart or Walgreens or wherever, but I do know it sells for $9.99 in Target, so I'm going to go with that price. Locally, it retails for $79.95, I want to say, in Pennywise, and I paid $98 for mine in Starlight. So it is a much cheaper in Pennywise, but it's a long time before I can actually make it to a Pennywise, and I really wanted to try this foundation. So I did pick it up in Starlight. Now this foundation comes in 14 different shades. Half of the shades, I want to say at least 6 out of the 14 shades are different shades of white foundation. Very, very white, like fair, very, very fair. It's very white foundation. It looks even too light to be considered a concealer color for us here in the Caribbean, in Trinidad and Tobago, I want to say. So when I looked at the shade range isn't that inclusive. The darker shades, they appear to be very orange. I can't say because I don't own those, but I'm just talking about my view of just looking at it. They do tend to be very, very orange, and the darker shades are not that inclusive. Neither are the fairer shades. The shade range isn't that great on this foundation. If you are lucky enough to find your color, then fantastic. Some people may have to mix to get their ideal color and all of that. However, locally, I do not believe that they have brought down all of the shades. This shade, I want to say, this is 310 Sun Beige. This was the lightest shade that Starlight carried. This was the lightest one, and this one is what I'm wearing right now. And then I heard in Pennywise through the makeup groups and stuff that they're only carrying the darker shades, the more darker shades. So I don't know if they will even have this one. But I want to say that this is probably maybe the 6th or the 7th out of the 14 shades that they have. And this is my color. So I have to go down, to the first 6 are just very, very white foundation colors. Like I don't think anybody locally that might match. 1 or 2 people, I'm not sure, but I don't think it will match much people at all. So I did pick up this one, and I swatched this one. It does come with a pump, which is fantastic. We all need foundations to come with pumps. I did swatch this one on my hand, and then I did swatch it with the shade right after that, because the shade right after that looked like my color as well, but when I swatched that one, it was very orange, and this one was more neutral. So I decided to take this one over the very orange one, and then even when I tested this one, it did look a bit fairer than what it looks like in the bottle, but I kind of shared it out on my hand, and it really matched my hand. I matched it to my hand rather than my face, and in doing so, I thought that this one would have been the best match for me. So I've worn it a few times already, and it does match me pretty well. That's what I'm wearing right now. It matches my body pretty well. But what I will say is that I find it does oxidize from the color that it comes out to the color of when it dries down. It does oxidize. Now, people have said that the Rihanna Fenty foundation does that as well. I don't really think that it changes color, but I believe that foundation sometimes acts differently depending on the skin type that you have. Now, some people who have oilier skin, they tend to get foundation oxidizing on them much more than people who don't have that type of oily skin. So it's all dependent on the individual, but personally I do find that this oxidized a bit on me, and generally I don't find the range to be that great, and it is very orange. The shades are very orange. And then I even saw some people saying that when they put it on and they take out a picture, they take a photograph, it looks even more orange in pictures. So this is a very trial and error type foundation to get your shade, and that's as much as I will say about that. So I picked up this one, 310 Sun Beige. That's what I am wearing. Now, in terms of wear time, this does claim to be a 24-hour foundation. I have had on this foundation for about 8 hours now, and I have blotted twice and powdered. So I blot with an oil blotting sheet. I don't have any here to show you. I do blot with an oil blotting sheet, and then I go ahead and apply powder on top of that. I don't just take powder directly to my oily face. I like to absorb the oil first and then go in with a powder. Now, this foundation gives me a good 4 to 5 hours of wear before my oil starts coming through. Now, that could be a combination of things. That could be my skin type has changed. I do find personally that my skin has, I still am oily, but I don't get as oily as I normally do. And it could be a combination of that or the foundation. Now, the different times that I wore the foundation, the first time I put on the foundation, I think I used my Smashbox primer, which is the cream-based primer, the oil-free one from Smashbox. I use that on my cheeks and my forehead and stuff, and then I went in on the T-zone, I believe, with my Becca Evermatte priming, my primer, I think. And now I did watch someone's video. I did watch Casey Holmes' video when she first reviewed this a while ago, because as I said, in the States they got this a long time ago. And then when I did watch her video, I don't normally like to watch too many reviews on products that I want to try, because I feel as though it could make you biased to what you think about it from the get-go. But in watching her, she did complain that it made her very, very greasy. It didn't last on her at all, and it emphasized the size of her pores that she did have. Now, I will say, the first time that I put on this foundation, I got that same exact thing happening to me. I did find like my pores around here looked enlarged. They were dripping with oil. I was very, very oily that first time, and I instantly formed an opinion about that foundation, not really liking it. So I wanted to give it a few more times, so I did try it again, and then I tried it again with my Hourglass primer. Now, Hourglass is a very expensive brand. The primer, I have a tiny travel size of that primer, and that travel size of the primer is $20 US. And then a large size of the primer, maybe a little bigger than this, is like $55 US for a primer. Now, granted, that Hourglass primer is the best foundation primer that I own, hands down. It does have SPF. It is a white primer. I personally have never gotten any flashback from the primer, but it does fill in pores. It keeps me matte. It just makes your face a very smooth canvas for what you're going to work with. So this foundation definitely performs better with different types of primers. So if you are going to purchase this foundation, you're going to need to test out different types of primers to get that perfect result for you. But I will say that this is a nice foundation. It is a nice foundation. It is very thick. It is not watery like other drugstore foundations. It is thick. It is full coverage. For sure it is. And normally I layer 2 sets of foundation on my face all the time. I hardly ever do just one pass of foundation. I normally do one and then I do another layer. But this time I only did 1 layer, and I didn't cake up. Even when I did the 2 layers last time, the foundation itself did not look cakey. But I did find, without the Hourglass primer, and when I just used the Smashbox primer, that it did emphasize my pores and it did make me get very oily. So it works better with the Hourglass primer that I do have. I'm not saying to go out and buy the Hourglass primer just to make this work, but you will have to experiment with different primers, I believe, to get this to work. And another thing too that I switched it up the different times that I use this is that the first time that I used it, I set my face with my Laura Mercier powder, the translucent setting powder, which is a holy grail powder for many, many people. And then the time after that I set my face, I used my Coty Airspun powder, which I raved about that powder. If you go back through my videos, you will see I think I did a dedicated review just on that powder. It's in my top 5, something like that. But that Coty Airspun powder is a powder from Walmart. It's a very inexpensive powder. It does have a very perfumey smell, but it sets your face and keeps it matte for hours and hours and hours. So if you are a person who has very, very oily skin, I would suggest to get that powder. It works fantastic. So with that perfect combination that I did find, my Hourglass primer, the foundation, and then my Coty Airspun powder, I did get a very long time out of this foundation. So right now I'm wearing it for 8 hours. I did blot twice, but that is usual for me with other foundations. It's not unusual for me. So it doesn't really perform, like last that much longer matte in a matte way on me than any other foundation. It works the same way, but it is a nice foundation. It's definitely full coverage. $79.95 if you do buy it in Pennywise. It does come with a pump. The only thing is the shade range isn't good, and it is very orange. And then the only thing is you're going to have to experiment to find your perfect primer and powder that work with it in order for you not to look like a greasy mess. I do not know how this is going to work on dry skin. For instance, if you have dry patches and stuff, I do not know if it will cling to your dry patches, because it is a mattifying full coverage 24-hour. Well, it doesn't really say mattifying, but no, it does. Full coverage foundation up to 24 hours with seamless matte finish. So if you are a dry skin person and you're going to use this foundation, definitely put on a moisturizer and maybe a more hydrating primer underneath this, so that you do get, it will kind of even it out, because this is matte, and then you use something more hydrating. But for somebody who has oily skin, I'm talking about an oily skin person, definitely experiment with different primers that will work with this, because I did get very oily with the Smashbox and not as oily with the Hourglass. So it's going to take some experimentation. So if you do think that, you know, you really want to try it, definitely I encourage you to try it. It's a nice foundation. But, you know, it's not like the best. It's a nice foundation. Drugstore foundations can vary. I have found that when I spend a little more money on my foundations, that I do get better finishes and longer wear and all of that. For instance, my Lancome foundation is one of my favorite foundations, and then another one that I love to death now is my NARS All Day Luminous. Although it does have luminous in the wording, the foundation is just a bit more runny, but it makes your face look amazing. You get a beautiful, beautiful finish with that. So what I suggest is, if there's anything that you're going to spend money on makeup wise, make it be a pricey primer and a foundation. If you have to choose from your whole makeup collection what to spend money on, I would definitely say it's your primer and your foundation, because that is the base to your makeup. Now, I do have a lot of drugstore foundations, and they're just not as good as high-end ones. I'm not saying to go out and buy high-end ones, but it's been in my experience that when you do spend a little more money on those foundations, you get a better, you know, you get a better result. Now, foundation always looks nicer on a nice canvas, and that's skincare, and we could get into that at a different time, but I'm talking about wearability and, you know, all of that. So I do have my favorites, and they are high-end, but for drugstore, and if you're just going to a movie, or if you are just going through work and stuff, this will be a really nice foundation. It does photograph well, it does look nice in videos, it is a nice foundation, and if you want to try it, definitely try it. Let me know how you think the shade range is, let me know how it wears on you. So this video is just my personal experience of how it wears and how it worked for me, and that's as much as I'm going to say about this foundation. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you do have any other questions about the foundation that I did not address in the video, be sure to leave me a question down below and I'll try to answer it as best as I can. For shade reference, as I said, I am 310 Sun Beige. I am MAC NC42. So yeah, so if anybody is MAC NC42, this shade should work nicely for you. And I don't know how difficult it's going to be for the rest of you girls to find a good shade match. Definitely let me know, and if you have tried it, let me know your thoughts on the foundation. So I hope this video was helpful. Again, if there's anything you need to ask and I didn't address, please ask me down below and I'll try my best to see if I can help you. So yes, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you guys, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.